Good morning. My name is Leila Rao. I'm the co-founder of Lean In Agile, and we're here for the next installment of our LIA100 initiative, where we get to hear from amazing women from our Agile and Lean communities. And with me today is Jutta Eckstein, who is an extraordinary Agile expert. She has written at least 5 amazing books I know of, and she has been extraordinary community leader. She's helped organize a number of conferences in Agile. So welcome.
Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. So in reference to your amazing career, if you're looking back, can you give us an idea of how you came to where you are today?
This is a really big question. So, and I don't know everything really, how things came along. However, I started out as a developer, and my favorite programming language was Smalltalk. And I know the younger people don't know it anymore, but it's not only a party conversation thing, it is a real programming language, and I just love that. And I have been very early involved in the patterns community. And if you ask me, both of them, Smalltalk and patterns, are the origins of Agile. So Agile has been first described, well, which is Scrum and Extreme Programming, which were kind of the first implementations of it, have been first described as patterns, so as pattern languages, and they are both originated in Smalltalk because their founders were in the Smalltalk world, which also meant this was the reason why I got involved there very early on. So I think I heard the first time about that 96, 97, and then tried, yes, that's true, really early. So there wasn't the term Agile at the time, of course, right? But there was XP and Scrum. Scrum actually was at the time much smaller, so people talked more about XP. Not that it was extremely big, but still. Yeah. And so we tried it in the project I was working on. I think that was like 97. And then the interesting thing was in that project, there was my project manager who said, well, Jutta, I'm not sure what it really is, but since you are on the team, something has changed for the better. Which made me think, that maybe I can also offer something else than just, in quotes, not saying that this is bad or not good enough or so, but just programming, so that I can offer something else. So, and then this led to, in 98, me going independent. So I'm now 21 years independent. Yoo-hoo!
That's amazing.
It is amazing, and it was probably the best decision I made in my life. So, and at the time, at first, I kept working as a developer, but already tended into a different direction, which was more in the direction of design and architecture. And then thereafter into more like team building or process supporting roles and so on. And it was, I'm not sure about this, I guess in 2001 or so, I worked together on a project with Kent Beck and Rob Mee, the Pivotal founder, in Germany, which was one of the first, I guess, the first XP project in Germany, which was really named like that, and people hope that we will get there somewhere with it. So this was kind of my first real immersion into it. Before, it was more a trial thing on our own stuff, but this was then kind of, where we really did the stuff. And then because typically the projects or the clients I worked with were more large, so bigger projects, it just happened to be that my next project was a large one, and I thought, well, now that I know all that stuff, of course I will do this as well, although I knew as well, like Kent was saying, well, that's not for large. What you need to do is to get rid of a lot of people and do it in the small. And so I just tried that. And the good thing maybe downplaying me as well. I don't know. But the good thing was that this project really had suffered so much and everyone was ready to try something else. So that helped a lot to get started and just, yeah, do this more agile stuff. This is now my terminology. At the time, we were not using it. And so this was then started in, I believe, 2001, 2002, something, which also led to the first book I wrote. So this was then the first book worldwide on scaling Agile. However, we discussed that title, by the way, scaling. And together with my publisher, we decided not to use it because scaling actually doesn't mean anything. You need to say if you scale up or down. And I wanted to talk about only the upscaling, and that's why we then decided on the title of Agile Software Development in the Large. So then this was like working on this large projects, large teams, and with, I think at the time it was like 300 people on this, working on the same system. So having like one product, right? Really big. And then it just happened because the time were the way they were, that the next large projects I was working on, they just were not co-located anymore, because that was the general trend, right? So as soon as there were a little bit more people there, then naturally it was a distributed setting, which then led me into gaining my first experiences about Agile in a distributed setting, which then also led to my second book, which I published, I think, in 2010.
Okay, I got to ask about that.
Yes.
How did it happen that you went from doing this, learning how to do this, to thinking about writing a book? Were you approached by a publisher? Did you approach them?
That's a good question. So on the one hand, having been in this pattern community, pattern is always about writing stuff up, right? So having this collection of experience and making this available to others. And because of that, there were always also publishers who kept asking everyone in the patterns communities, which was also a kind of had a market at the time. I'm not so sure about it right now, but publishers kept asking about, like, everyone, don't you want to write a new book, or do you want to start writing a book or something like this? So this was there. However, really being honest, with all my books, to me it was more, I felt like I have something to say people should know about. And I know especially with the first book, the In the Large, I was so much ahead of time, nobody was really interested. Well, nobody in quotes, it's not really true. I know I had also like a few fans or people who were really excited about that, but there were not really many people doing it. So it didn't fulfill a need that people had at the time. It was more for people being curious. So, oh, could this possibly work or something like that? But it wasn't really, yeah, that the need was big there at the time. So it was me being on a mission that I thought this is important stuff and people should know about that and hear about that. And so that was, I think, at least for me, I need this, otherwise I cannot stay it through to finish a book. So I have to believe on that thing. And then at the time, yes, there were publishers asking about that, but then I also went out and just sent it around, and well, for good or bad. So I had, I think, like 3 different publishers who wanted to have the book. And I decided on one which I found really very exciting. Afterwards, I'm not so sure if it really was a good decision, but I went with Dorset House, and I was really, well, proud, because it's the publishing house of Tom DeMarco and Jerry Weinberg, so all these big names in our community. And here is little Jutta being like part of this amazing group. Yeah.
Totally. Thank you. I did not want to derail your journey, but I did want to talk about this particular part of your journey, because I think for a lot of us, especially women, we struggle with the willingness to put ourselves out there, to take that leap of faith or risk.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a combination of being in a community that values knowledge sharing
Mm-hmm.
and being on a mission that what I have learning, what I'm doing matters and should be
Mm-hmm.
shared, worked for you.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So maybe one of the things that helped me was in my former life. So I have a former life. So before I started to become an engineer and went into IT, I have finished a study as a teacher. So I'm a teacher with like the first university degree that I made, which means you always go out and share your knowledge. That's the whole thing about teaching, right? And so I can imagine that this kind of was already then embedded in me, and it was more a natural thing to do so than it is for maybe other women. So it wasn't for me such a big step. I also started writing articles even still when I was working as a student, at the time I was studying, and also went to conferences and gave little talks and so on. So I started that really early on, but probably because of that, yeah, formal life thing.
That's really helpful. So for the rest of us who don't have that background, use writing as a way of learning and sharing what you learn.
Yes, right.
Okay.
And really what helped a lot to me was the whole patterns community where you always get this support when writing. And I really can only make a big advertisement here for the experience reports initiative from the Agile Alliance, because if you there say, well, I have an experience I really want to share, you get somebody who helps you to make a good story out of this, and so people can really learn from your experience. So you get all that help, and then also you are invited to talk about this. So that's a really kind of lowering the barrier for getting into it.
That's extraordinary. I'm certainly going to look into it, and I'm sure pretty much anyone
Yeah.
watching will do so as well. So now that we've covered those two sidetracks, can we get back to, I think, where you were in 2002 and what happened in the next 19 years or so?
Yeah, right. Actually, we were actually already about 2010, which
2010, okay.
was the distributed stuff. And
Yes.
then with like working on global and large um, systems and with teams who are spread over the globe, it came kind of natural that the bigger and the more distributed things are, the more I got in touch with the remainder of the company. So there was always this organizational stuff coming in. And I guess a lot of people have seen that sometimes it's just in the small that you feel like you can't be as beneficial with your team as you could be if the environment would be a different one, right?
Yeah.
Yet also for me, it was sometimes, well, there were contractual things with like different sites or uh, I don't know, strategies that might go against or in favor of something, which led me going into more, okay, let's look at the environment. What can we do or what's needed there to really make Agile succeed there? And so this led then also, I will think my books are kind of my milestones or turning points or something. So that led into the next two books, which is the one which I wrote together. It's kind of a booklet with Johanna Rothman on cost of delay. Because, well, we know for DevOps and so on, we know a lot where we lose time and therefore where we have cost of delay and where we can speed things up. However, the environment around us often has way higher chances to really make a huge difference and find these spots. And so we were looking at those more. And the other book on that part was also not a really thick one, but still, I think, a very important one, the retrospectives for organizational change. So also often we think retrospectives are for IT software teams only, but they're not. It's a time for reflecting, inspecting, adapting for everyone, and you can use it to introduce any kind of change. So it can be related to Agile, but it doesn't have to.
No.
Yeah. And so this meant I now was already more on the organizational level of the company, not so much on product development project area anymore. Oh, well, maybe another sidetrack. At the time, I decided, and I think that was 2011 or 12, so to me at least it feels not too long ago, I decided to go back also to university. And I made another degree, a master's degree on business coaching and change management. And the reason was because I felt I'm doing this for such a long time, but I never really learned it. And I really wanted to know more about and also if I'm on the right track and what am I missing. And that's why I wanted to do this seriously in a full master study and not like a little course here, a coaching class and there one, but the real university thing here. Yeah.
So kind of like a teacher.
Yeah, right. Maybe. Yes. Uh-huh.
Now, into the value of formal education, to have some of the theoretical underpinnings to what you know from experience is very valuable.
Exactly. So this was a really big thing for me. And on the one hand, it kind of was a verification that it's not completely nonsense what I'm doing here, so which is good. But also it got this more scientific evidence, and so I knew why things are working. And of course, I could also enlarge my toolbox, so that was helpful too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, I totally understand. I think it also helps with having the right language to talk to stakeholders.
Exactly. Yes, very true. Well, and now we are kind of getting too close where I am right now. So this now being on the organizational level, I just found out that, well, in order to have an agile organization, agile is not enough. That might sound like a oxymoron, but it's not. It's really, I really believe in that. You need to think outside the agile box. And what I always thought was, well, there is so much stuff out there, and why do we ignore so much of that stuff that's out there? And so this then lucky me, I met John Buck, so my co-author of my latest book, and he's a sociocratic expert, and with him we brought together this latest book, which we have the acronym for, which is called Bossa Nova. And the long title is Company-Wide Agility with Beyond Budgeting, Open Space, and Sociocracy. So it's bringing really 4 different streams, 4 different perspectives on an organization. And I would say it's, on the one hand, not an invention because it's all out there for a long time, but the synthesis is a new thing, and thinking holistically about that, that's kind of the new stuff.
But that itself is innovative, right? So innovation isn't just creating something new. It's bringing different things together, synthesizing, seeing different perspectives. Right. So I would absolutely call it innovative.
Yeah. Yeah, maybe, yes.
Mm-hmm. But I do love the fact that you're recognizing that Agile is incredibly powerful, but there are also other powerful approaches and levers. And in order to help a complex organization be more successful, we're going to need all the levers and all of the options that we can possibly bring in.
Right. Yeah, that's absolutely true. And too often we ignore it. And again, also what you said earlier with the language, just thinking of beyond budgeting, it really adds or brings in another language which speaks to the whole finance, accounting departments, and we in the agile worlds typically don't have that language, and so we don't get hurt.
Yeah. No, and I think a lot of where Agile is now, certainly if you're working with organizational level change, is being able to take what we know and translating it to languages that other people recognize. So exactly. It's not as, hey, we're Agile, we have the answers to everything, but more as, here are the challenges we recognize. Does this sound familiar to you?
Yes.
Are you seeing similar challenges? And then building from that shared recognition.
I can't agree more, yes.
This is really interesting because a lot of what you're saying has also paralleled in my career. It's a lot of what is what is this next challenge I'm seeing? Okay,
Mm-hmm.
what are other things I can use to do this? How can I convince somebody? How can I help people see something different?
Yes, and that's all, because I still think, well, very often we also do a very bad job, because we go into companies and say, like, we have the answer, and we don't. We
No.
first need to listen to the challenges and problems, and then help them finding the answer.
When you said your background is in teaching, mine was in journalism.
Ah,
As a
see,
newspaper
yeah.
reporter. So one of the
Wow.
first things I learned is how to go in asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
Because as a reporter, you're never the subject matter expert. Everybody knows more than you do about their field.
Well,
So
at least that should be the attitude.
it should be. I
Yeah.
think I was very lucky. I was the last generation of reporters who actually got trained properly,
Mm-hmm.
who got taught about biases, my own biases, perceptions, about how to listen, how to ask questions, how to hear what's not being said.
What a great preparation for the work you are doing right now.
It, this is where I connect with you when you said there was no 5-year or 10-year plan.
Yes.
There was none. I was
Yeah.
simply a newspaper reporter, and that has been the best training ground for being an agile coach or change agent than I could have ever imagined.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I can imagine.
So we're getting a little bit off into my journey, but going back to your journey, one of the things that I could not help but notice is the degree of collaboration that is evident both in your thought leadership and your community work. How do you see the value of this collaboration, and how do you maintain these relationships?
So first of all, well, I said I started in the patterns community and small talk, and so I learned a lot from those communities. And so then when Agile started off, it was for me as well a way to pay back what I got from different communities. So because I felt like this is so rich, and it enabled my whole career. And so I still feel that way, and paying back, it doesn't mean, well, I'm not getting something out of it. That's maybe sounds like it, but that's not true, right? Yet it is one of the motivations to really still keep sharing what I'm learning, and keep connecting with people, and to help one another so that we can grow together. I think this is so valuable, and yeah, it's just so rich.
That, I think if there's a single takeaway from me from your journey, it is that, because I am so impressed by the depth and breadth of collaboration. We talk about collaboration in Agile, but you're actually living it, and you're doing this very holistically. Do you have any tips for the rest of us on how to manage this kind of collaboration-rich activities?
Yeah, well, that's a really difficult question, and I often think I'm privileged. Well, I am privileged just because of the environment I grew up. That's for sure. Yet also privileged by my own decision going independent, because that helped me to look at my life holistically. And I don't need to ask anyone if I can go to this conference, or help reviewing for that other conference, or sharing something over there, and which of course takes away time from my client work. But because I'm not differentiating and saying, well, the one is more important than the other, or family life, or whatever it is, I have this one life, and everything adds together to my life, and I just do the things that I find important. And well, sometimes it also means there are days where I'm not working anything, and sometimes, like, I'm pretty sure, so this Thursday, which is in 2 days, I'm going scuba diving, and I'm pretty sure I will still find time to check back, especially with the community. So because I'm always involved in some of the conferences, and so I will keep responding, and of course between dives and not while diving. Of
I have
course.
some first
And,
safety.
Yeah, but this is fine for me. I know for other people that might feel like it's a disruption, and well, I'm on vacation and I don't want to be interrupted here. And so it's never the case for me, because this is this one life where everything is coming together, and it I don't know, maybe it both stabilizes each other, but it also allows it to be, allows it that other stuff can emerge because of that. So it's both flux and stable, or fluent and stable.
No, I think it makes total sense to me. So I think for anyone who may or may not be independent, the takeaway still is look at your time as a single entity and
Yes.
recognize that all these different things are still a part of you, and what decisions you make any given time are going to vary. But just be in tune with, is this how I want to be? Is this who I want to be? And adjust.
That's a great summary. Yes. Excellent. Yes.
Part of the reason why I'm asking these questions is these are lessons that I need to learn. So as I'm hearing your story, by summarizing it, hopefully I'm helping the people who are listening and watching, but I'm also doing this for my own sake. As you said, paying it back, giving it forward, you also do benefit from it yourself.
Yes, true.
Wonderful. This has been an amazing conversation. Is there anything else that we haven't covered, especially in terms of, you've seen the history of Agile from its very beginning to what it is now. If there is one piece of advice you could give to the women who are just coming up now, who are seeing what Agile is now, but who don't have the history, is there any advice or recommendations you would give for them?
Well, the one thing we said already, so try not to go somewhere with your answers. And I can give you really a tiny little example. I know so many like Scrum trainers also, they go to a company and then they start teaching Scrum. The way I'm starting, and I know I don't do everything right either, yet I'm starting with a retrospective, because I first want to learn what's helping them and what do they need to keep, despite they want to change towards an agile path, be it Scrum or something else. But first listening to what's working for them and what's not, and then try to help them with their challenges, but not going there and saying, okay, basically whatever you did before was stupid, and I know it much better what you should do. So and often it feels a bit like that. So being more, embrace more what's really needed.
That is incredibly powerful, starting with a retrospective. I think work on a personal level as well as a professional level.
Yes.
And in terms of honoring what's there, I come from Lean. And one of the things that I learned working in healthcare is you have to honor the system, because people behave that way because something in that system rewards that behavior. So build upon what's there. You just can't come in and tear things down and expect it to be sustainable.
Yeah, right. It will flip back right away.
Yeah.
And then the frustration is much bigger.
And yes, and we're making it harder for the next person who's going to be helping the organization get better.
Yes, yeah, true.
All right, thank you very much, Jutta. This has been an amazing conversation. Thank you for your time and sharing your wisdom so generously.
Thank you. It was really great conversation.